Hello there, everyone. I've been really busy here in the shop. I've got a couple different projects all going on at the same time, but uh, somebody told me that I hadn't made a video in a while and that I probably should. So I thought I would take this opportunity. I'm at the start of this one little project that I'm making, and I thought I would, I guess, make the video, bring everyone along, and kind of show the process. What I'm going to make this time is it's a cake stand, cake platter type thing for wedding cakes to sit on. Raised it up a little bit off the table, and so I decided that the person that I'm making it for wants it to be kind of unique and kind of special. So I just happened to be at the wood store the other day, and I come across this piece of wood. It's called bacote or bacote. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it, but I think it's a South American wood, and it's just very, very pretty. So I thought I would show it to you. This is what it looks like. It's got some super interesting grain. You can see this is the bark for what they call this is the heartwood, and this is the new wood, the sapwood on the outside. But it's got some really, really tight grain, and you can see down here on the center. This was where the center of the tree was, and you can see the rings and stuff coming out. So this is it's got quite a few rings on it. It's a fairly old tree. The interesting thing about this is if this was the center, that means half the tree grew this big, the other half the tree grew twice as big. It's kind of interesting how wood turns out that way, because this would be the outside edge of the tree on each side, and the center came here, so this side actually grew more than the other side. I thought that was kind of interesting. But anyway, what we've got here, I took and I've cut a chunk of wood off here. This is going to be about 8 inches around, and it is going to be the top of the cake platter. And then I took and I cut some smaller pieces off here. I glued them together, and so this is going to be the base of it, the stand that's going to go underneath. So basically these two pieces will kind of go together like this. It'll all get turned nice and round, and so we'll see how it turns out. Well, that should get us a start. I'm not too exacting with my cutting, because it's going to be on the lathe and it's going to get turned true round on the lathe, but it's kind of an interesting piece of wood. Got the center marked already, and I made a scribe line around here, so we'll get it set up on the lathe and see how it works. Well, we're ready to start setting it up on the lathe here, getting it put on. So, got my piece of wood here. Like I said, I had the center marked in it. Little pin on the tailstock. So what I'll do is I'll line her up, slide it forward until it touches the chuck, kind of lock it in, tighten it up. Now the reason I do it this way is because what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to cut a dovetail in here so that I can turn it around and mount it in my chuck. And I don't want to drill a hole or anything like that in the side of it, because this is actually pretty thin, and I want most of this, especially the top side, I want most of this for my platter. So I don't want to make too many marks in the top side. I'm going to want it nice and smooth. So I'm just going to be really, really careful. And when I do my dovetail in the end here, and get it put up, and then I'll flip it around. Now I've made my own little dovetail gauge. You can see that this is for this set of jaws, and I'm doing an inside tenon. This is the biggest inside tenon I can do, and this is the smallest inside tenon I can do. This is actually I'm doing an expansion tenon, sorry. This is my minimum expansion. and this is my maximum expansion. So what I'm going to do is I want the grooves that I cut in here to be as small as I can, so I'm going to try and match those grooves right there. I'm going to do that. I'm just going to kind of get it close to the center. I'm going to make a mark here. And that'll be my basic. I'll start there and I'll work just a little bit out from there. Now I'll show you a little bit of what I do to prepare for the lathe. This is called an exotic wood, and for a reason. It's from another place, and this wood, I don't know if you can actually tell on the video, it's kind of shiny and it's very oily, it's very aromatic. Different people have different allergies to different things. Some people have allergies to walnut and things like that. Some of the actual native oils, the natural oils in these trees, can be kind of irritating, and so even though I have a good dust collector here, it still gets dusty. So I always wear a dust mask, and I always wear a face shield for all the things that get thrown back at me while I'm doing my cutting. It's real simple. This is kind of what some people are wearing for COVID-19, and this is really not a good idea because this valve in the front right here just exhales unfiltered air. This kind of mask filters incoming air. It filters the dust that you're breathing in. That's what you want here when you're working with wood. So get set up here. Give you a little bit of an idea what I look like when I'm all ready to go. So we're ready to go. Well, good morning, everyone. I just wanted to update you a little bit. This is the platter that I was working on yesterday, and I told you I was going to sand it. I actually ended up putting a little bit of finish on it, and I reprofiled it just a little bit more, put a little bit more finish on it, but it's pretty darn thin, which is actually what I wanted. Still got some weight to it. This bacote is some pretty heavy wood. You'll see back here what I've done. I've cut this groove in here, and that's where my chuck fit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make the base of it. I'm going to cut out a little tenon that's going to fit in there. So when it pops in there, it'll all be centered, and then I'll glue it all in together, and then we'll finish turning it out that way. But it's just kind of give you an idea of what I've done so far. And now what I have is I have this block of wood, which is 5 pieces that I cut off that same board. It's the same wood, and I've glued them all together. And what I'm going to do is I mark the centers on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to make this the base of the platter, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. Okay, you see I have a little punch mark in both sides of my block here that I've measured out, and so I'm going to mount it up. I fit the punch mark into here. Oops. All right, that's what it's going to look like once it starts spinning. Well, you see that? I used my roughing gouge, and it was kind of square and blocky. Now it's all around except for that little gouge right there, which is no big deal. That's going to get turned down later. And this is actually a pretty cool piece of wood. It glued up pretty nice. So a little bit of sapwood here. That'll probably come off as I turn it down. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn another groove in one end, probably this end where I can put my chuck in, and then when I get that done, then I will mount it up in my chuck, and I will start turning it so that turning a tenon on this end to fit in the bottom of the bowl, or the bottom of the platter, I should say. So we'll see what happens there. Sorry about that. My camera went fruitcake for a little bit, and it stopped working, and the picture went black, and I honestly don't know what happened, but it did. So this is what I was doing before I actually noticed that it had stopped. I was turning the base plate, the base of our cake plate here, and this is kind of the shape that I got. And I'm turning off the ends here, and I'm going to get it set up so that I can mount the top on, and then I'll be able to shape the rest of it as we go. So we're going to try that and see how that works. All right, well, you'll see what I've done. I've taken my platter and I've put it on the end of my tenon here, on the end of my base. I brought my tailstock up with just a flat piece of wood to kind of hold this in place. These aren't glued together yet, and I'm just going to move them around a little bit and try and shape them. What I am going to do is, before I do that, I'm going to put it in the right place here. I want to make sure, one of the things I want to do is I want to make sure that all my grain lines up with the platter, and there we go. It kind of sort of lines up, just but that center block is not quite. Let's see. Yeah, that's the way. That way right there, all the wood was going up and down like that. And That should line up pretty well there, I think. It's not going to be perfect, obviously, but it'll look a little bit better than it did. Although maybe I want it to go the other way. I'm not sure. Well, it's just gonna be a little different. We'll see how it works. All right. Get this in here. This is going to be some very close tolerances here, so hopefully nothing messes up and we should be all right. All right here, well, I'm going to flip it over to time lapse and then we'll take off from there. Whew. Well, I think that's about the shape I wanted. That's pretty much the pattern that I had in my mind. It was down in the groove in the corner there. It was getting a little dicey just because of the way the grain of the wood works. It was kind of chipping up a little bit. I had to be very, very careful getting down in there, getting to match up. So now I'm going to sand it and match all up. And I think then what I'll probably end up doing is I'll glue it all together and finish sanding it and start getting some finish on it. So that's really boring stuff. You know, maybe after I'm all done, it's all complete, then I'll show you the picture of it and we'll put it on the video. So hope you enjoyed that. Sorry for the camera malfunction. It was just kind of one of them things, you know, you never know what's going to happen. So anyway, we'll get it finished up and get it posted. Well, here it is. I got all the sanding done, put a coat of finish on it, and did all the underside, made it all curved, make it look nice. I think it's a pretty cool piece of wood. Especially love this top. All the grain on the top looks really, really good. The last thing I have to do is the bottom. I had my chuck mounted in here, so I have to sand the bottom a little bit. I think I'm going to maybe shape it a little bit. I will sign it and then put some finish on it. So I'll show you how we do that. Here I've got my smaller lathe. I've got what is called a set of coal jaws on here. These are rubber bumpers and they will grab a big piece like this, so I can set it right on in here. And it will clamp it down, not going to go anywhere. And I'll be able to do a little turning and sand it up here. I'll show you what we're going to do. Alright, I got my platter all cleaned up. Got my Worcester foam brush here all loaded up full of finish, and got my lathe turning really slow, and this is basically how we get our finish. This is a water-based polyurethane coating, and I really like it. This is Minwax water-based polyurethane. I really like this finish. It's good and tough. It's food safe, so once it dries you can put food and drink on it, and you can eat off this platter and it won't make any difference at all. This is a shiny finish, and I really like the way this stuff works. It seems to do a really good job, and just takes a little bit of prep. You'll see it takes a little bit of prep, but because there's usually put a couple coats on, and man, sometimes if it doesn't dry quite right. Big thing with this stuff is the temperature. It really likes a nice warm temperature. So I try, and when I'm getting ready to finish, I try and keep the shop about 80+ degrees with as low humidity as I can get, which the air conditioner is running right now because it's like 100 degrees outside right now here. And so the air conditioner is running and clearing out a lot of the humidity, so this water-based stuff dries pretty quickly. It'll be dry to the touch within, oh, I'd say within 5 minutes or so. In the wintertime, when the air is just really dry anyway, no matter what, yeah, it dries really quick. But first coat on this stuff always soaks in, and it'll raise the grain just like any finish. It'll raise the grain pretty quick. And so the first coat isn't super important to get it right, but it does help. Every advantage you can get. But I put this first coat on, and generally I'll go back over it after it's all dry. Go back over it with 400 and sand it all down. I'll sand probably about half of the finish off. And get it nice and flat again, like I say, with 400 grit sandpaper or so, and I'll sand it back off nice and smooth and put another coat on, and generally that coat looks really nice. Bubbles and stuff are the only thing that I have trouble with this finish, but if I can get it real smooth and get it on just a little bit thick, if you put this stuff on a little bit thick, it does flow out really nice. And it'll smooth out. So if I can get it on thick enough on that second and third coat, then it'll flow out really nice and flat, and it'll look really good. So anyway, there you can kind of see what a difference it's made. Then you can see the little bubbles and stuff like that in there all. But anyway, that's basically how I finish this stuff, and my process is, I don't know if it's any different than anybody else's or not, but it seems to work for me, and I like the way this stuff turns out. It turns out nice and shiny, really smooth. Sometimes if you really work hard at it and really work hard to get it smooth and clean, it'll be really flat and it'll be like glass. So that's why I like this stuff. And I don't have to polish it, don't have to buff it. And this is a really tough coating. It can take some abuse. So, you know, this is a cake plate. You can cut a cake on this thing and the finish will handle it. It's pretty nice. So anyway, that's my little process. Kind of see how I do it. Well, okay, the last time we tried this piece came right off the lathe, flew across the shop and broke into 2 pieces. I've had to redo it, and I ended up recutting some of the edges and things like that, put a couple dents in it. So I had to redo it. Reglued, I got it put back together. I got it looking nice. I actually think that it looks better after I redid it, because the edge is thinner. I'll show you here. So I can get this turned around. I actually think this edge is a little bit thinner and this edge is a little bit straighter, and I just kind of like the design of this a little bit better. I like the look of it a little bit better. This neck here has a little bit more curve to it, and sometimes it's just funny the way things work out. So I've got it mounted up. I had it on my small lathe before, and these jaws would barely fit over the table. So now this is on the big lathe again. I've got these jaws reset a little bit differently so I can actually get a tighter grip on it. And I'm not going to use my carbide tools this time. I'm going to use my regular lathe gouges, and I'm going to hope that that's going to work better, and we shall see. think I like that. There was a notch in there when it fell off the first time. It cut a little notch in there, so I had to get rid of that. And I wanted to kind of dish this center out, make it look good. So I still got a place to grab onto here. With my chuck, I've still got a little landing here, which should be fine. I just rounded this edge out a little bit, so I'll get it sanded up, and we'll see what the final product looks like. Well, all right. I think we're finally done. I ended up putting about 4 coats of finish on this thing, about 3 coats on the base and about 4 coats on the top, just so I got it nice and flat. And I think it's finally dry, so you can see the final product here. I don't know how close I need to be to get it in the light, but that's just a piece of Bacote, and man, that grain is really cool looking. This is really nice in here. I got a good shape to it. Basically, when I put finish on this thing, what I do is I just spin it really slow on the lathe, and I use a foam brush, and I just lay it on there, and it's got to be all in one continuous type thing, one continuous stroke. That way you don't get any bubbles in it. That seems to be the best way to work it for me, and that's what I found works real good, and with that polyurethane. So I always sign everything. You can see my name on the bottom, and so hopefully the cake that's going to go on this will look really cool. But that's basically my process, and I think I'm really proud of this. It looks really nice, and a good wood choice, that kind of thing. So hope you enjoyed it.